Good afternoon and welcome to the September meeting of the Public Works Committee. On hand, I have committee members John Larson, Nat Scipio, and I'm not sure if we're expecting Vice Chair Burke, but she's not here yet. So we will proceed. Committee members, do we have any items from the consent agenda they want pulled?
C3.
C3, Councilmember Larson.
Nothing.
And I'm going to pull C4 just for a quick question. So, Jamie.
Item C3, resolution accepting an American Rescue Plan grant for the lead and copper rule compliance program in the amount of $400,000.
Hey, good afternoon,
Ms.
Council.
Driver, please elucidate.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a resolution to accept a grant for the lead and copper rule revisions or program in the amount of $400,000. There were revisions made to the rule in January of 2021, and public utilities need to conduct system-wide service line material inventory. We have to develop a lead service line replacement plan, develop a sampling monitoring plan for compliance. We have to provide public education and continue with our corrosion control measures, which we currently do. And we have to be in compliance with this rule by October of 2024. So this is just a $400,000 that goes towards that program, a grant.
Questions?
I just wanted to make sure everybody knows this is where what makes me happy is when the city goes after federal dollars. We apply for them and we get those grants to help us do what is requested of us. So I just wanted to thank utilities for the application, and of course we got it awarded, and I look forward to us complying to the new regulations. So with that, I move for approval of C3.
And while we're at it, let's get approval for the rest of the consent agenda.
Oh, sorry. Did I jump up too fast?
No, that was me. That was me. It's on the chair.
Second.
Okay, we'll get the opportunity to vote here in a second. Do I need to go back and?
Go ahead and finish that, and then she'll go back.
Okay. All right, so if we could get a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda, please.
Except for C4.
Except for C4.
Yeah.
C3 and C4, I think somebody pulled C3, right?
That's what we just listened to.
Yeah, C4, okay.
I move for approval of C1 and C2 on the consent agenda.
So moved.
All right, let's vote accordingly. And C5.
And C5. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's complicated. All right, that is unanimous. All right, if we get a briefing on C4, please. Mr. Fansler.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Members of the committee, Jeff Fansler, Director of Transportation. So, Mr. Chairman, the item here is for really to really codify and bring up an existing condition that we have. So several years ago, we approved, permitted, and of course partnered with the school system on a project to do some improvements along Northwest Boulevard, and it included 4 handicap spaces there just adjacent to the intersection of Renolda Road there at Northwest Boulevard. These 4 spaces, as mentioned, are on the eastern curb line, and they are existing, but what we had realized is that we never brought it forward through this body to formally adopt that into our ordinance as recognized curb usage. So we want to do that today with this action and bring that forward for consideration. Happy to answer any questions.
No questions. I just wanted to get a clarification here. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Fansler on that? I would like to, at a future date, talk about this, our process of granting these spaces. When we started it, we kind of said, let's see how it goes. And I think it's time for some clarification. Maybe some further look at what public input needs to be gotten, but just kind of an overall global recheck of this.
And Mr. Chair, would you also like to include valet spaces in that as
That'd
well?
be great. At the same time, that'd be perfect. Yep. Thank you. All right, can I get a motion?
I move for approval of C4.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please vote. Or if not, vote as well. That is unanimous. Thank you. And let's go to our momentous general agenda items.
Item G1, information on capital projects presented by Engineering Department.
Mr. Presswood, if you would.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Wanted to come forward and do a quick update on some of the capital projects that the engineering department is currently managing. I know there's quite a bit going on, so we just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of where everything stood right now. Just as a beginning slide, did want to do a quick reminder. As you're well aware, the pandemic and the supply chain issues from the pandemic greatly impacted our 2018 bond schedule. Luckily, some of that has loosened up, and 2023 has been very successful in completing some of these projects that have been delayed. Just wanted to kind of go through some of those. Fire Station 13, which is the station over near Haynes Mall. Marshall Park down here just recently had that. The East on Park restrooms, Long Creek Park, which we recently did a ribbon cutting on that. Bethania Freedman's Park, which if I'm correct, there's a ribbon cutting set for this weekend on that project. Haynes Park Phase 2, Washington Park, and then Quarry Park Phase 2, which we just recently had a ceremony out there honoring Tim Grant. So we've been very pleased to get these projects off our list and move forward to some other ones.
All right. Can I
Councilmember Larson?
Yes, sir.
What is the status of the driveway into Washington Park now?
The drainage improvements have been made out there. We still need to make some signage changes out to make it official, but the work that was needed to be done to fix the drainage issue is complete.
The engineering is done.
Yes.
Great.
Okay, keep going.
So the first project I wanted to mention is Bellevue Recreation Center. It's a $4.7 million contract to Holden Building Company. We are actually starting to work on punch list items on that project, so we expect to have that one wrapped up by October. It's a really great-looking gym that has been added to the facility out there. I think it's going to be a good facility for the community. Fire Station 3, which is on Liberty near the airport. Again, $4.4 million, the same company, Holden Building Company. We do expect that one to be wrapped up by October. There still will be some work that goes on out there because once the fire department moves into the new facility, the contractor will be tearing down the old facility out there. So even though we will be moved over there, you'll still see work going on out there.
May I ask a question?
Councilmember Scipio.
Is Fire Station 3 similar to Fire Station 13, except for the community room?
They have some of the same facilities, like the decontamination room that we put into 13, that is in 3 also. It is a different architect, so there are some differences in it, but as far as the facility itself, it's pretty similar.
Great. I was really concerned about the decontamination room because
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
really an asset for the fire
It is.
department. Thank you.
So Union Station, second floor remodel. You've just recently approved the construction contract for that. This second floor is for Winston-Salem State to move into. The contractor, which is Central Builders, is scheduled to start in October and plan to have that done by July. So hopefully Winston-Salem State can start using that by the first of next school year.
Any status change on the top floor?
Nothing official. We have gotten some information back from the architect we hired to explore the restaurant space, and we're still evaluating that right now.
Thank you.
So Meadow Lark Drive widening, you've probably seen this in the news lately. We've gotten quite a bit of coverage out there because of the delays. $7.7 million project. Smith Rowe is the contractor. We have had several meetings with the council member and the contractor to work on their efforts that they are making out there. The past month or so, they have moved multiple crews out and have started making some noticeable progress. We're encouraged by what they're showing. One of the things the contractor still owes us is an updated schedule. We're still waiting on that, but obviously that project is not going to be done until sometime in 2024. Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Scipio.
Just refresh our memory about what's been the major delay on this project.
The contractor, Smith Rowe, has had labor shortages. pretty significant shortages and has had a difficult time even having a complete crew out there working all the time.
And are there penalties to the contractor for?
There are liquidated damages of $1,000 a day. The current contract right now, the end of the contract is the end of October, so there's going to be some pretty significant liquidated damages at the end of the project.
Thank you.
So Lakeview Drive Bridge replacement, a little over $1 million contract on that. It is the same contractor that's doing Meadowlark, Smith Row. But I think as part of what was explained when that contract came forward, their bridge division is separate from their roadway division. This project is on schedule and is progressing well. And so we are looking at an expected completion in November of this year. And then Cloverdale Drive Sidewalk Project, a $2 million project. Atlantic Contracting is currently working on that. This is actually phase 3 of a multi-phase project to improve the pedestrian safety in the whole area out there. This is the final phase. And so we think that's going to make a big improvement once everything's done. As you can see on the photo, it's the area in front of the Walgreens and then in front of the Harris Teeter Shopping Center. So much needed sidewalk out there. And then the concrete streets replacement project, 6.1 million, Sharp Brothers. This was one of the projects that was most severely impacted by supply chain issues. As you can imagine, a lot of these roads are very old, so we're also replacing the water lines that were under them, and ductile iron pipe was one of the items that was in very short supply and had almost a year lead time. So this contract has been delayed quite a bit, but we are hoping to have it wrapped up by the end of the calendar year. Yes, ma'am.
Is the Lowry Street Road in this, oh, that's a separate project?
That's a separate project.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And so then just to kind of give you a look ahead on some of the other projects you might be seeing coming from engineering, one of them is Truist Stadium, which is, there's an item on Finance Committee today dealing with that. This is dealing with the upgrades that Major League Baseball is requiring of these stadiums. Bundy Creek Greenway repairs, you have recently approved a contract for the engineering and design on that project. So in a few months, should be bringing forward a construction contract for that project. The Washington Park Picnic Shelter, which is also on finance. This was the shelter that burned a few months ago. We have gotten a design and are hiring the contractor that we already have under contract for Washington Park to build this shelter for us. Martin Luther King Jr. streetscape improvements. We are currently working with Duke Energy on that project. They have a large lighting replacement project that they need to do ahead of our project. They are having to acquire property for that lighting replacement. They have acquired about half of the needed properties they need. So we are continuing to work with them and assist them. A couple of the properties are NCDOT owned and a couple of them are actually our properties. So we obviously are moving forward and getting those transferred over them too. The public safety training facility, we currently have a piece of property for that facility under contract. We're doing due diligence on it. One of the items we've done is hire a geotech firm to take soil borings out on the property just to make sure we're not going to have a problem with too much stone underground because we are going to have to build a stormwater pond out there and that will impact the cost. And then the Easton Elementary Mobile Unit, we just recently have inherited this project, so we're still kind of getting our arms around it, but we will be managing that project through to the end of construction on that. So if you have any questions about these projects or any other.
Councilmember Scipio.
Explain the Easton Elementary Mobile Unit. Typically, it should be a school system project, and we have inherited it because or is it part of our rec department?
I see Robert looking over here. That means it's time for me, huh? So this is, I think, a project that Councilmember Taylor had been working on with former Assistant City Manager Johnny Taylor and the school system. So I think the idea was there was a modular unit at Easton that the city was looking to acquire, I think, for little to no consideration. and then we would pay to have it located on their property in a different location and upfit so that it could be used, I believe, for job training purposes. Patrice may be able to elaborate on that a little bit better, but I think that's the intended use. So when Johnny left, we ended up handling this because one of Robert's staff members was actually with the school system and worked on it from that side when she was there, so she had some previous knowledge. So we pitched in to help out and get this project done to the point where a certificate of occupancy could be issued. And then I believe Councilmember Taylor will be working through the process to finalize who the group is to use the facility and what programs and trainings will be offered at that facility.
But the facility is on the school's property.
Yes.
It's just being relocated. and
It's
going
already,
to- And it's going to be for workforce development.
I believe that's accurate, Councilmember Scipio.
That's our involvement.
Yes.
I love partnerships, and I think we should do more of them when it makes good sense for the city.
Councilmember Larson, any questions?
Do we have a priority listing on sidewalk improvements that is still to be done? Particularly, I'm interested in the Brewer Street sidewalk improvement from Parkland up to,
Yes, that is on our list of projects. One of the items that we are working with Winston-Salem DOT on is they're working on an on-call agreement to get some more engineering firms under contract to help us with the design of these projects, and that is one of the projects that will fall under that.
we have sidewalks all over the city, I assume, that are going to need attention.
We have quite a few under contract and needing to go under contract for
Can we
design.
at some point see the list of what's under contract at least, how it's doing on all?
Yes.
Probably, Councilmember Larson, as part of next year's budget, I think it warrants a conversation. You know, we show you probably close to $500 million of unfunded sidewalk projects. We need to give you a more realistic list because we're not going to build all those sidewalks. So we probably need to pare that down. You guys see kind of the rate at which we build sidewalks. We probably need to pare that down to some reasonable number, a top 20, a top 25 list, and then we can kind of reaffirm that list as new projects get completed and we can add new ones to the bottom. But we need to give you a better, accurate depiction of what the sidewalk needs are than sort of this nebulous $500 million.
I think that's exactly what I'm trying to get to here. I know, like Brewer, I understand we've already got money set aside for that one. I don't know if we have money set aside for other sidewalks in the city or not.
Yes.
And
Yes.
In which case, yes, it would be nice to kind of know what is funded, at least what we can do with that, and then figure out how deep in the hole we actually are.
That brings me to my question. If I could wave a magic wand and just give you engineers, how many could you use right now? I mean, how short are you? I understand it's pretty significant.
We currently have 4 engineer positions vacant.
Out of,
We historically have had even more engineers than that on staff. So honestly, we would take all we could get right now.
supply chains are starting to open it back up.
It is.
Pricing, things are more available. Now it's engineering talent. That seems to be the bottleneck, and we try as hard as we might. We're unable to fully staff up, so.
And
Thank you guys for all the OT you're putting in. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Coming back off of Councilmember Larson's question, when can we receive an updated list of sidewalks that are being considered? Because I have no idea about the sidewalks in the Northeast Ward that are funded or that are on the list for consideration.
So I think we can do that, Councilmember Burke. That kind of ties back into the February 27th capital projects meeting we had. So if you remember, there was tier 1, tier 2 projects in there. So those tier 1 and tier 2 projects are funded. We can pull the sidewalk project, we can get with budget, pull the sidewalk projects that are funded and kind of break that down by ward. That's easy to do. And then I think longer term, it merits a discussion about how we think about future sidewalks moving forward. Because again, with our staffing levels, as Robert just mentioned, the ability to complete these projects at the time frame we probably need to paint a little bit more of a realistic picture for our citizens and for you guys as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all right. If there's nothing further,
thank you.
Chair McIntosh, I'll just add, I appreciate Robert coming forward this month. What we're probably going to do, as I've shared with you, is have an information item on each of your public works agendas from probably engineering, TFO, utilities, and DOT, so that kind of on about a 4-month basis, you're getting an update on these projects. So you mentioned Lowry, you'll hear about that soon from Keith. And so that way we at least keep these on a short leash with you guys, keep you informed. That way you can ask your questions. So you'll see more of these information items coming forward, moving forward.
Perfect. Councilmember Scipio.
Yes, Mr. King, also, it might be good if we could also have a report on how aggressive we are going after all of those infrastructure dollars that the federal government has for roads, sidewalks, and streets, and bridges.
I'll give you that report now, not very aggressively, because we don't have anybody to handle it. Just being frank with you, Councilmember Scipio, we got Runnymede. That's a massive project, and we're still trying to figure out how to pull that off. We've got Long Branch. We were lucky in getting that $6 million raise grant there. We're still trying to figure out how to get that one moving. So until we can get our arms around the existing federal projects and federal dollars we've got, I don't know that we can go after more until we can at least move the ones we've got awarded forward.
I hear you. However, if we aren't aggressive, we're going to miss the opportunity to get some of that money. And maybe we need to have a little think tank around how can we get the support we need so that we can go after those dollars. Other communities are doing it and going after them. They won't be there forever. And I hate for us not to have funds to do the things we need because we haven't been thoughtful about how can we look out of the box and try to get some of the grant monies to do what we need to do. I understand our lack of staff. Over the years I've been here, I've heard that since 2018, and we don't seem to be able to make a dent in that staffing on the engineering side. But that doesn't necessarily mean we shouldn't be more creative and thoughtful about how we could do it. Since we're handicapped at that point, maybe there's a different way. So perhaps we should just bring some folks together and start thinking about how can we move forward with those dollars. It's so much money, and some of it's not hard to get if we just apply. And I just hope that we'll have some thoughtfulness about that and action around it, because I hate for it to be gone.
At some level, we need to be careful of what we ask for and get and then don't spend. There are federal agencies who look at what we have gotten and don't spend and penalize us moving forward if we haven't spent what we've gotten. So capacity is the big question. If we're really talking about staff capacity, maybe we need to have HR in here, ask them what their efforts are. It's not Robert's problem. He hasn't created the problem. It's not anybody really you see in front of you right now. It's the market and it's our efforts to hire. So I'm not asking staff to go push for more money until we know that we can spend it the way that the people who are giving it to us expect us to spend it. I think it works negatively against us.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
do we contract or do we use outside contractor for
absolutely.
engineering
Wherever possible.
Wherever possible. I was just wondering, a number of good
If that were the solution, that would be done.
well,
And we pay dearly for them.
I know we do, but when we write grants, we would write them in, and as the cost of their services would have to be part of the grant package, not expecting our staff to pick up those responsibilities. Staff would have to supervise the work still, but I'd like to see in our grant application, just as we have overhead expenditures, that we have, if we need professional services, that be a part of the grant application, and the variety of engineering firms that could maybe help us do some of this work. And I'm sure that Robert probably knows who they are in the city, at least, maybe even statewide.
I think we're probably at maximum capacity for that as well. I think our oversight is working as hard as they possibly can right now. Oversight is the issue. Right? Having staff that will oversee our contractors and deal with, when you hire a contractor, you don't just hand them a check and say, go do the deal. We're responsible for the way federal dollars are spent, and the burden is still on us to have it done right. So it's not as easy as going to hire a contractor. I hate to be pessimistic, but I mean, that's the reality where we are right now. We have more money than we have the ability to spend. All
I
right,
hate to be pessimistic too. I'm optimistic. I think they're resources we have not looked into because we want to stay in how we do things right now. And until we have discussions about options and alternatives outside of our staff, I don't think we're going to be moving forward. We'll just be constantly left behind. I just don't want us to be left behind. And so whether we look to universities to help fund that, yeah, it's going to be some staff changes in how we work with folks. But we first need to at least explore possible options, in my opinion, or we will just be left behind.
So, Councilmember Scipio, I would tell you that I think we also need to have an examination of how we got here. We have 297 capital projects that we shared with you on February 27th. As at the same time, our staffing levels are going down, and that didn't happen overnight. So I think we need to have a frank discussion about how we scope future projects moving forward. So that's the reason why when you're saying other communities are able to go after this, my suspicion is they had a little better project discipline than we did in previous years that got us into this point. So I think we need to be mindful of that. I'm looking at the report Scott gave you on February 27th. Robert's got 52 projects. Robert, how many folks you got managing this? 3, 4, 2. So when I say I'm not just coming in here to make excuses about being able to manage other contractors, that's not in addition to the staff-facing services that engineering provides and the services they provide to other departments within the city. There's no capacity. So I'm not trying to make excuses, but we're beyond the point where we can get creative in some of these departments. I'm just sharing that as a bit of background.
Well, if we're down 4 more engineers minimum, then we have a recruiting problem, don't we?
I can't hear you.
I'm just saying, if we are down 4 more engineers in that department, it sounds to me like we have a recruiting problem, and maybe it's a salary problem as well, or what? I mean, something's going on here.
So the issue is with all of these infrastructure dollars and private development taking off, we could stand to get more competitive with municipal peers, but the other part is when you've got private engineering firms that are paying substantially more than we can pay, they're pulling up all of the capacity. And Pat Ivey will tell you the same thing. Jeff and I just had lunch with him 2 weeks ago. Statewide, DOT is at 25% vacancy. His Division 9 office is at 20% vacancy. So and he will tell you they're farming everything out they can because they just don't have the capacity to hire. So we could stand to get more competitive. I think our HR director would tell you that, and I think our pay study is going to show that. But even with that, there's still going to be some challenges.
All right, on that positive note,
Yeah, so.
thank you, and we are adjourned.